All right, class. So what I'll do tonight is I'm going to go over some of the questions that you had from the review work and some of the prior questions from last week. So this will finish off sort of the radicals chapter, and then I'll give you a take-home exam that I want you to submit to me for marks. Okay. I was thinking about covering a new part tonight, but I'll save that. I'll cover a couple new sections for Thursday's class. Okay, so tonight, what I'd like you to do is just basically um, look over your homework and then do the practice test and then hand that in. Okay, the practice test will be open book, so you can use your notes and um, textbook and all that to answer the questions. Okay, so let's go over some of the questions here. So this was a solving question. So you've got the square root here. You want to get rid of it, so you square it. You square this side as well. Okay, so that'll give you q squared over 2 plus 11. And then when this says q minus 1 squared, what that means is this is going to be q minus 1 times q minus 1. Okay, so that's going to be q squared minus 1q minus another q, so that's why you get minus 2q, and then negative 1 plus 1. Now we want to get rid of the 2 at the bottom here, so we'll multiply this side by 2, which means we have to multiply the other side by 2. Okay, so that's what we end up getting, and then what you want to do is set that as a in proper quadratic format. Okay, so proper quadratic format is you have your square, your letter, and the number equal to 0. Okay, so all that should be on the same side. So you try to factor that. If you're unable to factor that, then we can always use the quadratic formula. So remember, there's your a. So a in this case would be 1. Okay, b is negative 4, c is negative 20. You put that in there. And then that's going to be 4 plus or minus root 96 over 2. And that's going to be 4 plus or minus 4 root 6. So the reason why we went from 96 to root 6 is because 96 is 16 times 6, right? So there's your perfect square. The 6 then, the 16 here, when you pull it out, it becomes a 4. Okay, and then you get these two answers, and then this one here is extraneous. Okay, now for these type of questions, a little bit hard for you to, you might have a hard time determining whether it's extraneous. So extraneous, again, just a reminder, extraneous means that if we put this answer back into the original question, we don't get the two sides, the left side here and the right side here, to be equal to one another. So therefore it's an invalid answer. Because remember, when we do the radical equations, we only allow for positive square roots. Okay, and so you don't even, if you're just able to determine that they're going to be different, then that's good enough. You don't need to go all the way and solve. Okay, once you can identify that they're going to be different. So if you're not comfortable using this into the original equation, you can just turn this into a decimal number and then put that back in, and then you'll give you a rougher answer, but it'll show that it doesn't work. Okay, 8a. Okay, so now first thing we want to do, when we square both sides, you want to make it easier. So this 5 here, we don't want it with that root, so we'll move that over to this side. So that's where you get x minus 5. Square both sides. You get 3x minus 5 equal to x squared minus 10x plus 25. And then again, put everything together. Now in this particular one, we're able to factor. So remember, you're looking for two numbers that add up to negative 13 and multiply to 30. So negative 10 and negative 3x. And then you can work that out to x minus 3, x minus 10. Again, it gives you two answers, but the x equals 3 is extraneous. Okay. So again, if you put x equals 3 back into the original equation, okay, so I'll just do that for you here. So here's the original question. So if you got 5 plus 3 times 3 minus 5 equal to 3, which is going to be 9 minus 5 equal to 3. So what you get here is 5 plus 2 equal to 3. So 7 equal to 3, right? So that doesn't make any sense, right? So that's why this is an extraneous answer. You do the same thing with x equals 10, and you'll see that the left side equals the right side. So that's your answer. Okay, so again, this is what we mean by extraneous. Again, you only allow for positive roots, positive square roots. Okay, the next one here, the same idea, we're going to square that. We get x squared plus 30x equals 64. Move the 64 to the other side, and then we can factor that. Okay, so two numbers are going to be 32 and negative 2, right? Add up to 30 and multiply to negative 64. Here's our two answers, and this time they both happen to work. Okay, so both answers are valid. Okay. Okay, next one let's look at is number 9. Okay. Okay, so here, this one is kind of a tough one. So we'll move the root n over to the other side here. And so remember, when something is inside of a root, it can be split into separate roots. So all I did here was I took the root 3n and made it root 3 root n. And the reason why I did that is so I could kind of factor out that root n that they both have. And so this is just factoring out root n, so that gives you root 3 minus 1. And then when we square both sides here, the 5 becomes 25. The root n here is just going to become n when it's squared. And then this has to be squared, so it's being multiplied by itself. And then we get this whole long thing here. And then if you divide the 3 and the 1 become 4. And so we want to isolate n, so we just get rid of that part. We divide both sides by it, and so this is what we end up getting. And so if you look at that, remember, we don't want the roots at the bottom. So what we want to do is we want to rationalize the denominator. And when we have two things here, a binomial, the way we rationalize the denominator is by multiplying by the conjugate. So we have 4 minus 2 root 3, so we're going to multiply both sides by 4 plus 2 root 3. And so 25 multiplied by 4 plus 2 root 3. And then when these two things multiply, so I'll just go over the conjugate again, right? So you notice how I put down 16 minus 12 there. I'll show you how you get that. If you've got 4 minus 2 root 3 multiplied by 4 plus 2 root 3, right? So first you can multiply by this 4, and so you're going to get 16 plus 8 root 3, and then you multiply by this one over here and then over here, and so this is going to give you negative 8 root 3, and then minus 4 root 9. Okay, so 4 root 9. Okay, so this is the whole point of the conjugate. That middle part will always cancel out. You have plus 8 root 3 and negative 8 root 3. So what you have here is 16 minus, and so the 3 comes out of the root 9 multiplied by the 4, and so that's where you get the 12 from. Okay, so 16 minus 12, and then that's just going to be 4, and then 150 and 4 are all divisible by 2, so you can put that in lowest terms here. 50 plus 25 root 3 over 2. Okay, and then page 304 here, this was the chapter review. Okay, so this one here, you're squaring. Okay, so when you're squaring, that means you're just going to be multiplying by itself. Okay, so just kind of like what we did with the conjugate in the previous question. So 5 times 5 is 25, and then root 3, and root 3 is going to be root 9, which is 3. So 25 times 3 is going to be 75. And then you've got 5 root 3 multiplied by root 8, which will be minus 5 root 24. Another one, minus 5 root 24. And then root 8 and root 8 is going to give you root 64, which is just going to be 8. Okay, so the 75 and the 8 can go together. And then we've got 10 root 24. So when you're looking in the back of the book, you might have stopped here and said, well, why is my answer different? So whenever they can reduce that or simplify it, right? So the 24 is 4 times 6. So there's a perfect square we can pull out as a 2. And so that's where we get the 20 root 6. Okay, so they're always going to put the answers. So a couple things. They're always going to put the answers in a simplified format with the root. And the second thing is they're always going to rationalize the denominator. Okay, so that might be why some of your answers are looking a bit different, even though you're kind of going through the right steps. Okay, another similar question here. So if we want to rationalize the denominator and it's a square, we just have to multiply it by it once. But if it's a cube, we have to have an additional multiplication because you need 3 cubes to offset a cube root, just like you need 2 squares to offset a square root, right? And so that's what's happening here. So when you have 3 of these, that just gives you the 25. Okay, so that's rationalized. And then you have these 2 here, which is a square. Okay, so you can leave it like this, or if you want, you can square 25 and leave it in the cube root. It's like a 25 times 25, whatever that is, and that can go in there. Okay, 14D. So here there's no numbers. You're using the conjugate. So again, it's a minus root b. So this has to be a plus root b. So the signs are always the opposite. And so just like the other one I did, kind of lengthwise, the first term always multiplies by the first term, a squared, and then the second term always multiplies by the second term. That's where you get the b, and it's minus because you got negative and plus. That middle term again gets canceled out because there's a plus of one of them and a minus of the other one, and then this is what you get on the top, which you can expand. And the restriction here is that you have to have a positive root for b, and then you can't have the bottom equal to 0, so that's why it says b can't equal to a squared. Okay, so if these two are the same, they offset each other and become 0. Okay, last one here. So 7n plus 25 minus n equals 1. Okay, so we can move the minus n, we can put that to the other side, so you get n plus 1. Okay, and then square both sides, so you get rid of this one here, 7n plus 25, and there's your n squared plus 2n plus 1. Okay, put it all together, and then factor that, so we get n plus 3, n minus 8, and so your answer is n minus 3 equals n equals 8. So again, another one of those questions where you've got an extraneous root with the minus 3. Okay, so if we want to look at why that is the case, again we can put that back into the original question. Okay, so there's the original question, sub n minus 3, and so here you get 5 equal to 1, which doesn't work. And just for comparison purposes, let's put the n equals 8 in there. So same thing, let's write down the 7n plus 25. Okay, so put in the 8. Oops, that should be minus 8. So this is going to be 56 plus 25. And 56 plus 25 is going to be equal to 81. And square root of 81 is going to be 9. Okay, so 1 equals 1. So that works. Okay, so there's your comparison, right? So you've got one that's extraneous and one and the one that works. And this, the other good, this is a good habit to get into, because the other thing that's going on here is you'll have more confidence in your answer, because you should be able to see that it's able to work. All right, so I'll stop there. So the only thing I want you to do is complete that take-home exam and then submit it. It is for marks. Some of you have sent me a message wondering how you did on the last exam, so I'll let you know how you did on that. Others I haven't heard from. So again, if you want to know how you did on the exam before spring break, just send me a message and I'll let you know on that. Okay, so the take-home exam again is for marks, so let's get that done, submitted before Thursday's class. Again, if you're having technical difficulties and you're not able to do so, just send me a message. I'll try to walk you through how to do that. And the other thing I'm going to do now as well, just sort of an add-on, is I'll start. I'll basically I should be more. I'm just been trying to get this set up, and now I feel a little bit more comfortable getting these lessons set up. So I should be keep sending me messages and questions. But if you kind of want a live interaction in real time, I should be more available during our normal scheduled class times. Okay, so just send me a message, and I should be able to get back to you sooner when it's during our proper class time. Okay, so I'll stop there. So again, get that take-home exam done, and then we'll start on the next unit for Thursday's class. Okay, so be well, look after yourself, look after the people in your household. Try not to get too stressed out about what's going on. I know it's a little bit difficult, but try to stay positive. Hopefully we kind of get through all of this. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.